Alright, in this video we'll be looking at solving one-step equations. As you can see here, I have 4 different equations with the variable x, and we're going to be solving for that variable. Now when I say solve for the variable, I'm asking for a number that I can replace the variable with that will result in a true state. For example, number 1, x plus 2 equals 5. We're looking for a value of x that I can add 2 with, and it would equal to 5. Now for some of us it'd be pretty obvious here that if I take the x and replace it with a 3, 3 plus 2 would equal 5, give us a true statement. For other of us it may not be so obvious, so we've got some methods or techniques that we can use to solve for x. What we're going to do is the opposite of what they're doing to the variable. So notice here they're adding 2, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the opposite of that, which is subtract 2. Now when I say subtract 2, we're going to make sure we subtract 2 from both sides. So I'm subtracting 2 from the left side of the equation. I'm also going to subtract 2 from the right side of the equation. Now by doing this, notice that this 2 minus this 2 leaves us with an x on the left. And if I subtract 5 minus 2, it leaves me with a 3. Therefore x is equal to 3. Again, if I replace x with a 3, notice how when you add 3 plus 2 it does equal 5. So you can check your work there. Let's try number 2 the same way. The opposite of subtracting 1 would be to add 1. Now remember, we're going to add 1 to both sides of the equation. And by doing that, this cancels, leaving us with x on the left side. 6 plus 1 equals 7. Therefore x is equal to 7. Again, if I check my work here, if I replace that x with a 7, notice how 7 minus 1 would equal to a 6. Results in a true statement. Let's try number 3. Notice here they're adding 10 to the x, so we're going to do the opposite of that, which is to subtract 10. And again, we're going to do that to both sides. So now we have x on the left side. And if I subtract 12 minus 10, 12 minus 10 would equal to a 2. Therefore, the solution to this equation is 2. Again, I can check my work by taking that 2, plugging it in for x, and 2 plus 10 does equal 12. Let's try number 4. Here they're subtracting 3, so what I'm going to do is the opposite of that, which is to add 3. And if I add the 3, well, first of all, notice how this is going to cancel. And if I add the 7 plus the 3, 7 plus 3 equals a 10. Therefore, the solution to this equation is 10. Again, we can check our work by plugging that 10 in. Notice how 10 minus 3 does equal 7. Let's take a look at a couple more examples. Number 5, this time we have 5 times x is equal to 10. Again, what we're trying to do is find a value of x that makes a true statement. In other words, 5 times some number is equal to 10. The question is, what is that number? Now again, for some of you, it may be pretty obvious that 5 times 2 would equal to 10. But if we didn't know that, we can do the same thing we did with the first 4 examples, which is doing the opposite. So here in this case, they're taking the x and multiplying it by 5. So the opposite of multiplying by 5 would be to divide by 5. And remember, we got to do this to both sides of the equation. So this is now going to equal x on the left. And if I divide 10 divided by 5, I end up with a 2. Therefore, the solution to number 5 is 2. Again, we can check our work by multiplying 5 times 2, and in fact it does equal to a 10. Okay, let's try number 6. Here we have x divided by 2 is equal to 10. In other words, some number divided by 2 is equal to 10. Question is, what is that number? Well, again, if it's not obvious to you, what we can do is the opposite. In this case, the opposite of dividing by 2 would be to multiply by 2. So we're going to multiply both sides by 2. By doing that, I've got x over here on the left. 10 times 2 would equal to a 20. Therefore, the solution to this equation is 20. Again, you can check your work. 20. If you divide 20 by 2, does it equal to 10? Obviously it does. Therefore, this is how we know we have the correct answer. Number 7, 2 times x is equal to 12. What we're going to do is the opposite of multiplying by 2, which is divide by 2. Over here I'm going to be left with x. 12 divided by 2 would equal to a 6. Therefore our solution here is 6. Again, if you were to multiply 2 times 6, notice how it does equal to a 12. Alright, number 8. X divided by 5 is equal to 3. Some number divided by 5 is equal to 3. Question is, what is that number? Well, in this case, they're dividing by 5, so we're going to do the opposite of that. We're going to multiply both sides by 5. That's going to leave us with x over here on the left. And if I multiply 3 times 5, 3 times 5 is 15. So the solution to this equation is 15. Once again, check your work. If you divide 15 by 5, does it equal to a 3? Obviously it does. Therefore, we know we have the correct answer. Alright, let's try a few more examples. Here we have number 9. Negative 3x is equal to 15. Some number multiplied by negative 3 will equal to a 15. Question is, what is that number? Well, as we saw earlier, we're going to go ahead and do the opposite. So here we're multiplying by negative 3. So the opposite of multiplying by negative 3 is to divide by negative 3. And dividing by negative 3, we end up with x over here on the left. 15 divided by a negative 3 would equal to a negative 5. Therefore, the solution to number 9 is negative 5. Once again, if you quickly check your work there, you notice how when you multiply negative 3 times a negative 5, it does result in a positive 15. So the signs are important, so be careful. Number 10. 3 plus x is equal to 13. 3 plus some number is equal to 13. What is that number? Well, what we're going to do here is we're going to subtract the 3 from both sides. So when I subtract 3, what I'm left with is an x over here on the left. 13 minus 3 would be a 10. Therefore, the solution to number 10 is 10. Again, if you check your work there, if you replace the x with a 10, notice how 3 plus 10 does equal 13. Okay, number 11. X divided by 5 is equal to a negative 2. Some number divided by a 5 is going to equal to a negative 2. We want to know what is that number. So since they're taking x and dividing it by 5, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to multiply by 5. And by multiplying by 5, we're going to have x over here on the left. And if I multiply negative 2 times a positive 5, I get a negative 10. Therefore, my solution to this one is negative 10. Again, if we check our work, notice that negative 10 divided by a positive 5 does result in a negative 2. So we know we have the correct answer. Number 12, negative 5x is equal to a negative 20. We want to know negative 5 times something is equal to a negative 20. We're looking for what is that number. So let's go ahead here and divide by negative 5. Over here we're going to be left with x. A negative 20 divided by negative 5 would result in a positive 4. Therefore, the solution to this equation is positive 4. Notice again, if I check my work here, a negative 5 times a positive 4 does equal to a negative 20. So once again, the signs are important, so we need to be very careful with our signs.